They're really looking for a power exchange in that moment. People surprise themselves so much when they are happy to give over control or give command. When people come in for the ritual, it's about they are my sacrifice. They are my piece of art. They are my canvas. It's true objectification. They might come and think, I think I really want X, Y, Z.
But you know better.
My name is Abby.
And my name is Liam, and you are listening to the Evolving Love podcast.
In this podcast, we deep dive into the topics of non-monogamy and relationships, drawing from our experiences of being consensually non-monogamous for over a decade.
Whether you're monogamous, polyamorous, curious, or anything in between, we invite you to join us for this conversation.
Let's begin.
Hello, Evolving Lovers. Let me tell you a little bit about today's incredible guest. Mistress Fleur Driver is a professional dominatrix and BDSM practitioner with over 13 years of experience in the sex work industry. Originally trained in the courtesan tradition by European madames, her practice is grounded in immersive, intentional experiences that welcomes people from all walks of life. From her private dungeon in Sydney to international settings, Fleur guides her clients through carefully crafted journeys of surrender, ritual, and self-discovery.
In this conversation, we discuss healing through BDSM, sacred spanking, clients exploring sissification, high protocol scenes, how to use cling wrap in BDSM, masculinity and BDSM, financial domination, being married and also being a sex worker, the visual aesthetics of BDSM, aftercare and mental health for dominatrixes, the state of sex work in Australia, the difference between decriminalisation and legalisation of sex work, and so much more. But before we get into this conversation, we just have a little bit of housekeeping.
Yes, we do have some housekeeping, and first of all, we would like to apologise because our usual release schedule of releasing every week, we have not managed to do that the last few weeks. We have had a crazy time.
I know, we've been a little bit naughty. We're a little bit behind. We're behind on schedule.
Yes, what would Mistress Fleur Driver say about that?
Oh my gosh, what would she say? You have to listen to find out.
Exactly. Well, and we were also, just off mic, we were discussing what the plural for dominatrixes is.
Yes, as I read that out, aftercare and mental health for dominatrixes. It just didn't feel right saying that.
Dominatrices? We're going to have to figure it out. So
I'll have to send Mistress Fleur
listeners,
a message.
if you're listening to this and you know the plural of dominatrix, please let us know.
And it has been a bit of an exciting time here behind the scenes at Evolving Love, more of which we will share down the track.
Yes, some very exciting things coming.
But before we get into the episode, I do want to share with you all that I'm having my women's retreat in October. So if you're interested in coming along, please do send me an email.
Yes, we also have our conversation nights, and we're about to announce dates for those in Canberra and potentially in Sydney as well. So please pay attention to the Instagram or sign up to the mailing list just to find out about those events.
And I will say that if you are yet to attend an Evolving Love conversation evening, please send us an email. But also, if you wouldn't mind just sending a very short little video of yourself, just saying hi and that you're interested in coming along. It's just a very short little vetting process that we have for new people.
Let's end the housekeeping there and jump straight into our conversation with Mistress Fleur Driver. I must admit, this is the first time we've ever recorded a podcast in a dungeon. So we do feel a great sense of privilege. So thank you for having us here. To kick off as well, we'd love to know a little bit about your journey into how you actually came to be a professional dominatrix.
The road less traveled, maybe. So people end up, I guess, in this work through lots of different routes. And I've met lots of beautiful women who become pro-doms, and we all have such different stories, and that's what makes it so exciting. And everyone has their own unique flavor and style based on what that journey was. My journey started 13 years ago, and I trained initially as a courtesan. So for your listeners, that is an escort. So I trained initially as an escort, and courtesan training is pretty intensive training, so over a couple of years, and it's run by women, for women. And it's about crafting experiences that linger longer than just one fleeting booking. It's about how to hold space and be with people for longer periods of time. Through that, there's a lot of intensive training around sex specifically. And one of the things that kind of intrigues people most is some of that involves being watched having sex. So evolving it, changing it, working with clients, getting client feedback, and crafting basically your style. So not copying other sex workers and how they operate, but actually learning what is my unique flavor, how do I show up in this space? And as a result, you build your repertoire, you build your clientele over a number of years, and that enables you to travel with your work. So that's how I started out. I worked for a madame for a long period of time. I worked for a few madames over my early years, and then eventually started working for myself. Through that, met lots of different beautiful women who I shadowed and trained with over the years in different spaces, picked up little different sort of tidbits of how other people practice and operate in this industry. It enabled definitely like a colourful lifestyle for a long time.
And so what countries did you start this journey in?
You can probably tell from my accent, from the UK. So I am from, the UK originally, and that is on the door of Europe. So Europe, as we know, is a much more sex-positive environment. And so I did a lot of my early years were spent across Europe. And then as I got older, I flew the coop. I went and worked in New Zealand for a long time as well. I've been in the States, and now I'm in Australia, sat in my dungeon.
Wow. And with your relationship and connection to kink and BDSM, how did that sort of come to be along your journey?
There's a couple of avenues, I guess. My first real experience of kink and fetish and BDSM was with clients professionally. So I was introduced to, I guess, the community or the parties through clients. I was a paid escort at the time. I remember stepping into that world in my very early 20s thinking like, wow, like what is this space where people are so celebrating, you know, all their individuals, unique things. Me being a sex worker, I was just like, wow, this is always done behind closed doors and through so much privacy. And here I was experiencing these people who were celebrating each other en masse and in their like purest forms. So for me, that unlocked something personally completely for me. And I was like, wow, I need to figure out what I like in these spaces too, not just what other people like, right? So that really set off the course of events for myself as well to go, okay, there's a parallel journey here. There's my journey in professional sex work, but there's actually a parallel journey where I need to figure out who I am and what I like as well. Those things kind of married over nicely in the sense that as a sex worker, my style, even as an escort, was very dominant. I didn't have the language or knowledge around it at the time, but I found that the clients that were coming to me was because of my personality, which was consistent, and I was providing them with experiences that where I was leading, it was very female-led. So it was kind of a natural personality thing, but also through kink and BDSM exploration, I was like, oh, there's parameters, there's language around this, there's ways that I can put this into a much more thoughtful practice.
It sounds like you were finding your dominance through like a revealing, not necessarily a learning a particular thing. It's like unveiling that which was already within yourself.
Absolutely. And I think the people that I respect in the industry and who I actively seek out for training and shadowing and always learning, they're people who have said that they've always felt called to the work. It's not a case of, I did some training and I picked up some tools and now I'm good at X, Y, Z. This is inside of me. I believe in femdom and it's part of who I am and it flows out into every part of their lives, not just in session.
And in terms of a glossary of terms, so femdom, that stands for?
Female domination.
There we go. Amazing. We'll check in on a few different terms just in case listeners don't know all of the BDSM vocab. So you mentioned that you kind of discovered this as you were kind of going along. But when you were doing the courtesan training, and you said you felt like your star was naturally dominant. So was there just not language around when you were kind of initially in that training? Like, did no one ever mention this kind of concepts of BDSM? It was kind of an unsaid.
It was an unsaid, and the style that I was learning was much more about how to cultivate like sensory experiences for people that fit into their lives. So it wasn't peak adrenaline experiences necessarily, but it was like, how can my time and their time be spent together in a way that fits into their life? And so again, we'll use some terminology, GFE experiences is something that people might be familiar with escorting a girlfriend experience. So how can I be, the best girlfriend in this situation, making it feel as authentic as possible? And it was authentic for me at the time as well. So yeah, I wasn't taught or trained in kink and BDSM. I was taught in, the art of holding space for people in a sexual environment.
So how do you make those girlfriend experiences authentic? Like, what were there particular things that you would focus on? Was there like a particular kind of way that you would have these experiences with these people?
So for me, it was very much psychologically learning, right? How to read people from a very early stage, getting a read on like who they are, what they're about, what do they need from me, and how can I embody that? So I learned very early on how to chameleon myself, much to the detriment of myself probably later on in life. But early on in life, I was like, wow, I can just like move into any space and be in anyone's company, talk about absolutely anything. And basically learn to, fit and evolve and evaporate into certain styles and conversations to suit that moment. And for me, that was real, that was real, that was authentic, that was raw. And as I went on, I realized that I needed to figure out who I was as well outside of that.
So with the reading people and having clients come and see you, do you often have clients that come to you and they're not quite sure what they want? Like they're curious, maybe they're new to this world, and you help guide them along the way? Or like, how does that look for you? Like, I feel like you would have quite an insight into people around, certain things perhaps that they might be open to, perhaps before they might know that they would be into that. Does that ever happen?
So I am, a BDSM practitioner and a professional dominatrix. What that means is that I'm able to, read and assess, I guess, where people are at in their journey, what they need in that moment. Some pro-doms won't see new people. They will only see people who have seen other pro-doms before, who have experience and range and practice. I am open to seeing new people who have absolutely no experience in this world whatsoever. For me, that's a wonderful time in someone's journey because they often are coming at it from a place of real vulnerability, real terror, I guess, that, oh my goodness, there's this thing that I've been like holding on to. And I think it's important to recognize there's some people that are coming at it from a place of, I've got a fantasy that I've just never shared. But then there's also people that are coming at it from I've got a thing I need to work through and move through. Right. So there's different avenues and routes that people are coming to kink and BDSM for. And it's recognizing straight up, which one is it? Is this something that they want to do in the privacy and confines with someone who's an expert on this specific fetish or kink or whatever it might be? Or is it because they need a professional to hold space for them in a safe way where they're actually working through something over a period of weeks or months, potentially years?
And so in terms of the pipeline, so say someone is interested in having these experiences and they like, how would they reach out to you? Like, how do they then start the conversation where they can be vulnerable and start to share some of the things that they're into? Because I imagine there might be things that you are not necessarily, you might not think that you're the right dominatrix for them, that maybe someone else would be better suited. Like, how do you have those initial conversations?
My own boundaries and my own limits are really important, obviously, as well, as they are for everybody who works in any industry, knowing where you're at and what you're willing to offer. If someone comes to me and I don't feel like we're in alignment in terms of what they're looking for, what they're interested in, but I know someone who would be perfect for them, absolutely. Like, I'll send them along, happily so. And I've had that done with me as well. And it's such a beautiful exchange of sex workers building up other sex workers because you want that person to have a great time. And sometimes that means going with somebody else. But in terms of the perfect approach to come and see a dominatrix, read how they want you to approach them and follow it like it's the first task that they're ever going to give you. Follow it to the T and you will expect to have a beautiful conversation off the bat if you can follow it. For me personally, that looks like reaching out really politely initially, just something casual. Hey, I'm interested in a session with you. How can I go about making that happen? If that first very simple hurdle is passed, then they will be given my form. And my form really goes into detail a little bit about why they're coming to this practice. What is it that's drawing them? what kind of things might they be interested in, and that, literal drop-down menus of like, here's all the things I personally really love offering clients. Are there things in here that you feel you'd be drawn to? Styles of domination, that's really important as well, because there's, ways that I practice female dominance that other women will not. So making sure that our styles are aligned. For me, sometimes I enjoy sadistic, I enjoy mean. Right. Sometimes I enjoy much more nurturing and caring. Different people will draw out a different energy out of me. But you can't expect every femdom to be sadistic and mean. Some of them might never approach those territories.
So are those the two styles that you gravitate towards most?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Yeah,
right. And it's very much an energetic thing. So it's what is this person drawing out of me in that moment? And that natural thing that they're drawing out of me is usually what they need in that moment as well. Right. So it's a beautiful energy exchange of, they might come and think, I think I really want X, Y, Z.
But you know better.
And I know better. Yeah. Because actually maybe what they need in that moment is something much more different, something sensory deprivation that's really nurturing for them in that moment. And they go away feeling floaty and whole again.
And so will you often put a bit of a plan in place? Like it's like you come together, you figure out where you might start, and then you think about this, over a number of sessions? Or do you ever have a client who might come to you wanting something particular and you say, well, let's work to that. Let's make that a bit of a goal to get to.
So for me, scene crafting is something that I'm really meticulous about. I really like to make sure that I'm providing something that I love and that I believe in. If someone comes to me with a scene crafted, that's not a good fit for me. If someone's coming to me as here's what I fancy, here's what I operate, here's what I want, like a tick list, that's not a client for me.
Well, that's topping from the bottom, isn't it?
It is. And that can be fulfilled elsewhere. For me, trust that my training, my experience, my knowledge will provide that experience for you. We can definitely share together, your interests, what you're interested in, what you think you might want out of this session in terms of your feelings. We're going to talk about your boundaries and your hard limits, and we're going to talk about things that might trigger you, things that might you really want to feel, but then trust that I will understand the best way to let those things unfold. It's
interesting that you use the word kind of trigger you and that type of language, because often something that people don't really understand about BDSM and kink is that it can be a really healing practice. And I know I'm sure that's something that you think about a lot. Like, how do you reflect on the nature of kind of healing through BDSM?
BDSM and kink is definitely a transformative practice for some people. For some people, they're not approaching it for those reasons or for those reasons at all. For people that are approaching it as an energetic or transformative practice, the way that I do, which are my best aligned clients, and when we're coming at it from the same mindset, it's really about figuring out what is it that we can work on specifically, because we can't work on everything, right? I'm not a talking therapist. I'm a somatic practitioner, arguably. And what we're going to be working on is moving energy through your body in some way or another, whether that's through power exchange, whether it's verbal communication, whether it's through a physical session. That's what we need to figure out if that's something that we can actually achieve together. And I'll be really honest about if I believe that we can. And the reason I brought up the word, I guess, triggering is there are things that I absolutely need to know about someone. I need to know about, I don't need to go into the depths of your background and history and maybe why you're coming to me, but I definitely need to know if there's things that we need to avoid, because it's not going to move the session in the way that we're actually trying to get to.
Is there a point in your sessions where you know that someone has dropped into subspace and, would there be a bit of, a change in what's happening, or just explain what subspace looks like to our listeners?
Subspace looks really different for different people. And when we talk about subspace, what we're talking about is someone slipping into, in my personal experience of feeling in subspace, which I have felt too, it can feel like a really euphoric slipping into actually feeling like you're on drugs. It can feel really moving in your body. You can feel like you actually have no control over your speech, potentially. Your eyes might roll, your whole body might flow. It can feel like you're floating on a cloud for some people. And for some people, it might feel like your whole body is being firmed and pressed upon. So some people have a really physiological, visceral reaction when they manage to like really dip into that level of submission. For some people, it doesn't look like that at all. It's not physiological. It's a real mental exercise. And I've seen both happen and people react differently. And as a pro dom, it's my job to make sure that those experiences are handled safely and with care, because especially if you're handling equipment, you know, things like safe words and people talking about negotiation, boundaries and limits, sometimes people are in a space where they actually can't communicate with you anymore. So what signs in their body are you going to look for at that point to make sure that you're still on the track of making sure that we're operating safely and having a great time?
Do you have a signature safe word?
A signature safe word. Yeah. I do not have a signature safe word. I usually figure out, especially if maybe there's like a language barrier or something like that, we'll just use basic number systems and we'll use traffic light systems. And if people are verbally compromised, maybe dropping something on purpose, things like that. But yeah, I will definitely look to people's bodies as the biggest signifier to me of where we're at on that scale.
So you're really reading so many different things, not just their language, you're reading their bodies, you're reading their movements, probably gestures, breath.
Exactly. Yeah. Breath and temperature are huge.
You mentioned numbers. What's the number system?
So we might be, for example, if you're doing a sacred spanking ritual, we're going to look at between 1 and 10 as a basic scale. And my 5 is going to be different to your 5, different to Abby's 5. So it's really about figuring out that person's scale before we start and where are we trying to get to? Is pain pleasure for them or not? You know, going super hard, as I think some people have like the vision, you know, you're in there getting absolutely whacked to shit by a dominatrix. That's really not the case. That's really not the case. It's really about energetically moving things through someone's body and different parts of their body. And that might look at sticking around, you know, a much lower number scale for that person.
Do people share with you when they come to see you about their day-to-day life at all, or their work, or their reasons for coming, sort of, you know, from their outside world? Like, is there have you noticed that there might be a particular personality type of person who might come to see you?
In general, I would say the vast majority of my clients that I see on a long-term basis tend to be people in positions of authority and power in their day-to-day lives and jobs. They're really looking for a power exchange in that moment so that they can kind of tap out of feeling like they're having to hold up all of the balls and all of the plates and spin everything. They want a moment of total silence in their minds for the time that we're together. And that's going to look different for everybody in terms of the activities that we might practice in that moment. But the general common denominator does look like power exchange and handing the reins over to someone else for that time and space so they can go away feeling like they've had a really good sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And do you see trends across ages that come and book in for sessions? Like, is it more, you know, in particular age brackets, or is it kind of a broad spectrum of different ages?
The common age for me personally seems to be in 40s, mid-40s.
Right.
Definitely there is a range of people interested in different styles and different activities. But yeah, it does seem to be kind of that like slightly more middle-age. Perhaps people who have really thought about what it is that they're wanting and looking for.
Do you ever have couples come to see you?
Yes, and I love couples. Anyone listening, if you're a couple and you want to come and see a pro dom. Yes, I love seeing couples. I love sharing with them, I guess, and that's when I can get a bit personal as well. I can share with them how kink and BDSM shows up for me in my life as well. And it's not necessarily about teaching them the tools. I think everyone gets super excited. They're like, how do I use all these things? And can you show me how to use all this apparatus? And like, for sure, we can go through that. But I guess it's more about what is it that you're wanting to pull into your relationship together? Is it the power exchange thing? Also, like, in which direction, you know? And how can I help facilitate you guys feeling confident enough to go and use this in your everyday life?
Do you ever have couples come to you and the female in the couple wants to is like a budding dominatrix and she almost wants to be mentored with her partner there?
Absolutely. I think it's about it's sisterhood, right? So
Right.
it's like, okay, so can you shadow me, whilst I'm doing this thing? And I love that. If that's something that, if they feel more powerful with me in the room, cheerleading them on, drawing out that like Medusa snake woman, that bad bitch energy, that is nothing more fun than making them feel like you got it, like you've got it, babe.
Have you ever dominated two people at once? Have you ever had a couple come in and they would like to both be worshipping you or under
Yes. Again, love that. That's a very juicy session. Yeah. If someone is coming at it from they want to both feel in a position of, please give us tasks, tell us what to do. We both actually want to slip under that juicy submission spell together. Absolutely. I welcome that. It's a really beautiful experience for two people to share together.
Amazing. I'm wondering if that would be double the work for you or if you'd start outsourcing to each of them.
Oh, you outsource for sure. You can start to create your own little hierarchy pyramid and someone becomes your little sidekick. They don't even know it. They can start to, and that becomes so fun, like playing a puppeteering master for people and letting them flow between each other and seeing what they can draw out of each other. Yeah, you'd be amazed. Like people surprise themselves so much when they are happy to like give over control or give command, how much they're willing to give commands to others when someone's commanding them to give the commands.
Oh. Yes. Oh, I love this so much.
Everyone's getting enabled.
Everyone's getting enabled.
I love this. Do you find that there's like particular sessions that people gravitate towards? Like, could you group, all of the sessions you do into like particular themes?
I guess I've got popular scenes that I do package up, for want of a better word, because they tend to hit the different kinds of dynamics or things that people are after. So I offer something called the ritual. Ooh. And the ritual. Yes. The ritual for me is about honoring femdom in its truest form. So when people come in for the ritual, it's about they are my sacrifice. So they are my piece of art. They are my canvas. It's true objectification. So you are potentially hoisted up, you're potentially wrapped up, you're potentially painted on, you're potentially used in whatever way I see fit at that time. And it's really about them being able to like sensory tap out in that moment because they're just becoming an object. They're just an object for me to work with. And I love the ritual. That's a really fun thing for people to do. They don't have to think at all in that moment, right? They're just like a canvas.
Gooey.
They're gooey
canvas.
and it's a really,
that
really fun
amazing.
one. And we can orient that to, suit people's different desires of what they might think is something that they want on their body or to be immersed in that moment. The second most very popular one is the femme fantasy. So that tends to be people who are seeking a journey of feminization, sometimes forced or sometimes affirmed. And I think it's important to make the distinctions between those two things. So I get some people who come who want to undergo forced feminization. So they want to go from someone to somebody else over a journey of time. So that's usually over a set period of sessions. And that might involve sissification. So it might involve teaching them to apply makeup, to be a doll, to act and feel what it feels like to be a woman. But it also can come from two different places. It might feel like someone who wants to just explore that in the safety of my dungeon and feel really affirmed in that new energy and who they are and feel safe in that. For some people, it's more about wanting to be treated like a dirty, dirty girl.
Wow.
So there's two very different approaches to that. And it's really important to understand what the femme fantasy for them entails and why they're coming at it.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of my favorite things to do because I get to go shopping.
Oh, right.
I get to go shopping with people sometimes and find them beautiful things to be wearing. And then sacred spanking, which we touched on earlier, is a really spiritual practice for me. It's something I do in my everyday life personally as well. But that for me is an intentionally led spanking practice where that is what we're doing for the whole session. And it really is about energetically moving through things. For some people, they might come for that when they're feeling emotional or they've got a lot of pent up energy or things are just really out of whack for them in their life and they don't want to talk about it anymore. They just want to help move through it. Or they might come at it for energy activation, which is really fun. So they're like, I just want to feel like really untamed. I want to feel wild. I've got all these things going on in my life. I need all the energy for it. So they might come at it for activation of energy as well, which is really cool.
What's the difference between spanking and sacred spanking?
Sacred for me means, again, approaching it as an end-to-end ritual. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. It's about us being energetically connected in that moment. I'm not just a tool that's doing this to you. I'm not just a service provider that anyone can do this to. It's about really tuning in and making sure that we're actually on the 100% the same wavelength before we begin. For me, that looks like sitting together in a neutral practice together, meditating together, aligning our breath together. We become co-regulated through the whole thing and ending it and closing it in a way that for us feels like the job is done. So yeah, it's not about like when it becomes the sacred element for me, it's not about it being like kinky, high, sexy fetish. It's really about co-regulation and moving it through the body together.
Yeah, it makes me think of, if people are out in a club and they're taking something and they haven't thought much about it and they're dancing as opposed to taking something in a more intentional way, through like a point of healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you've got the ritual, you've got the feminization.
I do have a fourth one.
Yes. Let's get to the fourth one.
The fourth one I call a correctional detention.
Whoa.
So that might conjure ideas of like teacher and, all these kinds of things. And it might do, but it's less about the role play scenario because the role play it could be anything, where there's a power exchange happening. For some people it might be alien abduction on another planet. It could be interrogation in a prison. So these are all just layers that we're adding on.
Are you the alien? Who's the alien?
And like who knows? I could be like,
are you both aliens?
Potentially.
I love how creative this is.
Yes. Yeah. And creativity is at the bound of everything that I do. But the correctional part is, and what makes it different is it's a high protocol session. Okay. Really high protocol session. So that is someone who wants really specific, complex, layered tasks. They're going to be punished if they're not completed in a certain way. It's much more like thinking with your head. So we talked about the objectification one earlier where you just really don't need to think. This one is really thinking oriented. I need them on like 100%. You need to be there with me like on this journey.
What if you've got a bad memory?
Probably a high protocol session is not for you. Yeah. And I'd probably be guiding them into a different direction. I don't think that's the one for me.
Yeah. All the sessions. Oh goodness.
Yeah. But those are really activating for some people. Yeah. They get a lot of enjoyment from achieving in that moment, and it can become layered and more complex depending on how much they want to layer on top. Degradation, humiliation, things like this. So the scenario could be anywhere, but it's more about how high protocol we're going with it.
Wow. This is all so fascinating. You mentioned before about going out shopping with a client, which makes me think, your work extends beyond this dungeon that we're in now. Are there other scenarios that you might find yourself in outside of this particular space with clients?
Yeah. So for me personally, I think because I come from a long history of escorting prior to pro-doming, the social element for me is really normal. So there are certain clients, if I've built a good rapport with them, where that might roll out into social scenarios and social settings. I'm also a lifestyle mistress outside of my pro-dom work. And for your listeners, that means that I have personal submissives in my personal life as well. It's important for me that if someone we're going to be in a social setting together, that we've built up a real relationship of trust and a dynamic that we're both super into and involved in. Loyalty bodes well in those situations. Yeah. So that might look like going for dinner or going for what arguably in the outside world might look like a normal date.
Little do they know.
Little do they know.
Yeah.
So it really is an extension of how you live your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I live and breathe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many questions, all these different types, these 4 different types. I've got so many questions related to each one. First of all, you mentioned kind of containment in that first kind of scenario. Like, what does that look like? Because the other day, well, actually yesterday we were at a party, Abby and I, and we were talking about the use of cling wrap in kink scenarios. Can you share any thoughts on the best ways to contain someone?
I love cling wrap. That's my stash up there.
Wow. You've got quite the collection.
Different colours.
There's a lot of colours.
I didn't know cling wrap came in multiple colours.
Yes.
Is this like from Costco? Is this like a full industrial cling wrap?
Yeah, it is industrial. I can't remember where I got it, but I get it on repeat order because it's popular in terms of the best way to do it. So for first timers, if you're cling wrapping,
right?
Just I love that we're talking about this. It's making sure that someone's level of compression is appropriate for them. You know, let's just talk about health and safety for a second.
You don't want to wrap them too hard.
Yeah, I don't want to wrap them too hard. Can they breathe? You know, do they need the bathroom? Like there's some fundamental basics that we're just going to check in on first. But standing and then making sure that you've got a very soft place to land all the way around because you don't know what direction they're going to fall in. Is this someone that you can literally hold their body weight? I'm little, even though I think I'm very, very tall. And so if I'm doing this to a 6'2" man, I need to make sure that I've got soft places for them to land in any direction. But really that feeling of sensory deprivation and feeling completely contained is what they're after. Actually, the feeling of sweat and your body getting hot and pools of water forming, that is a really erotic turn on for a lot of people as well. So it's about, again, like what are they approaching it for? Is it because it's an erotic thing and they want to be used as a doll whilst they're wrapped up? Or is it because they just want to feel completely spaced out and out of touch with reality for that moment?
So I'm picturing you here with a 6'2" man. Do you ever have an assistant? Do you ever have somebody who sort of helps you in these situations?
I prefer to session solo.
Yeah.
That's my preference. There are sometimes I'll do co-topping scenarios with other DOMs, from my history and friends in sex work, I've got escort friends as well. So if there's a scenario that might call for an escort skill set, then I might involve them as well. But for me personally, I do prefer solo sessions. It really enables me to dig deep with the client and get into things quite quickly when we've already built that rapport one-on-one and they're feeling completely like at ease in my presence. Or not at ease,
Exactly. the most appropriate amount of ease.
The most appropriate amount of ease for that time.
You would have a lot of observations in regards to like masculinity. So you talked about feminization and you've talked about dolls and different kind of methods for exploring BDSM that might challenge traditional notions of masculinity. But do you find that the men who come to you have a really strong sense of masculinity, or what's their relationship have you noticed any particular trends?
So for me personally, a masculine man is someone who's really in touch with their femininity, right? And they're able to balance those energies in perfect harmony. Nothing more beautiful than the knowledge and understanding the language around that. The clients that I see, some are able to balance that and know themselves well enough that they know I'm going to feel amazing if I go through a femme fantasy. So they're actively seeking that out as a pleasure thing because they see it potentially as a wellness activity in that moment, right? They're like, I think that this is going to make me feel relaxed and sexy. Nothing more masculine than that in that moment. For some people, it might be because they want a place that's safe, away from prying eyes, and completely anonymous. And maybe they are struggling a little bit with their own identities. And that's something that I can help them through in terms of affirmation. Yeah. So it's a real range. I wouldn't say there's like a consistent type of man that comes through my doors. And it's interesting getting to know the different types.
Wow. How common is financial domination? And can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So FinDom, as it's been shortened, is not something I practice and have no personal interest in. You've got to be really passionate about doing that. If you're going to do that, it's a huge commitment to take over someone's finances, a huge obligation to be
Got to have an accounting degree.
You really got to know what the hell you're doing. Yeah. So I think with the rise of platforms that we've got going on in digital platforms, it's something that people are being very drawn to in terms of people moving into Findom. They're doing it literally from Twitter. Like, it's you don't even X.
Sorry, Elon.
You don't need a full dungeon to be doing Findom. You can be doing it online without any interaction with a client. Yeah, it's not wrapped up with in real life services for me and having energetic exchanges, but there are definitely women that are drawn and very good at it. And there's people who enjoy someone else just taking control of those things for them. But yeah, not something that I have any interest in.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I was interested to know about that because I feel like it's something that I've seen, on television and in different, media things, but I've never really come across anybody who practices that.
Do you have to do someone's tax if you financially dominate them as well? Like, what's the level of?
I have no idea. I know there's like I've got friends that definitely partake in it, and I think that it's really just making sure that that person is in a position where that's an appropriate thing to be doing, right?
Yes,
can I fend on them with a coffee a day a holiday a month? It's just finding that level of appropriation and making sure that everything's, again, consensual and above board.
Well, because you've been a sex worker for 13 years, like, have you seen the impact of the internet? You mentioned like anyone can just get on Twitter and become a financial dominatrix. But do you find now that there's actually people kind of returning to real world situations where it's like very in the present? Like, so people come to the dungeon because they want that personal connection. Because of course, porn is everywhere. If someone wants to search a dominatrix, they can type in and get, they can be looking at different websites for the rest of their life.
What are they looking at? Apparently,
you could be going down a dark wormhole very quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm old school, so because I started in industry long before the rise of OnlyFans and all these platforms, when all these things came bursting out, I was like, oh, should I be on all these things? Am I supposed to be doing all these things? Am I behind now? And I had to keep returning to what keeps me in industry, and it's in real life interactions and moving through things with clients in real life. I have an interest in media and content creation. I think it's beautiful and have profound respect for some of the amazing like porn companies that are out there and people doing some really luxuriously created femdom videography, and something that I think I will be looking to do from an artistic point of view. But in terms of the rise, I guess, of different creators, for me, a professionally trained dominatrix will never be just an online person or an online persona. You couldn't possibly be without that experience of really helping someone like in person, in real life, moving through those scenarios together. Yeah, there's like definitely two types of digital creators versus in real life trained practitioners.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Evolving Love podcast, we invite you to follow, comment, and subscribe. Sharing the podcast with friends, family, or lovers is the best way to support the Evolving Love podcast.
If you are interested in diving deeper and accessing my premium writing archive and other exclusive content, you can sign up at evolvingloveproject.substack.com. You also have a background in creative work outside of this space and alongside with your husband as well. How does your creativity transform over to this space for you as far as what you create as part of Fleur?
I am married, which is beautiful in terms of having a partner who's so incredibly involved and supported in my lifestyle and my life. We create my imagery together, my branding, we go on sort of creative tours together, if you like. My husband is a passionate photographer and videographer, and is a very talented man, and he works in live music normally. So when we got together, we started exploring BDSM photography and kink photography just out of sort of hobbyists together, and started shooting different couples and friends and things like that, and started to really sort of like hone in on our own style together as a couple, as a creative couple. And that really lends itself to my own work. And I don't feel, I'm sure as you with Liam, feel the most comfortable in front of a camera with my husband shooting me. It's the most beautiful experience that we get to share together, that creative journey together, and storytelling, concept telling, and it all coming across in those images. It's part of my life that I really cherish and value. It's not a means to an end in terms of content creation for cash. And that's, I think, where it feels sour for me with the rise of the internet, like you're saying, like the rise of kind of digital content creation. For me, it's always been an art form. I grew up around videography and photography as an artistic form. So moving into a marriage where that's celebrated at the forefront of everything was really important to me. Yeah.
Well, even just being in this space, you get the sense that you are so aesthetically minded. Like all the candles and all the, the various appendages that adorn the different worlds. Like everything is so beautifully set up. Like how much do you think about the way in which like aesthetics interact with BDSM? Like do you love like arranging scenes that are beautiful and almost like, even though there's not cameras in the space, like if it was filmed, it would just be like this masterpiece of cinematic action.
Yeah, absolutely. Every scene is an end-to-end little mini movie for me. How I move around the space, how I interact with the client, how my voice sounds, making sure that I know in my head visually what they're seeing and what they're consuming, smells, touch, texture. It's why I make sure I buy high quality instruments and apparatus. I want to make sure that we're using and feeling the things that I want them to feel in that moment. It's a luxury experience. That's how I've kind of moved through my own journey in sex work, and was part of my training early on was about aesthetics, and it's something that's cemented for me in terms of end-to-end experiences and making sure it sort of lingers on someone's body and mind long after they've left my dungeon space, not just in the moment.
And so after they have left the dungeon space, you've had a session, you've had a scene, and they've gone. Do you have your own ritual for yourself, like an integration period from, everything that you've just worked through with the client to then coming back into your life?
I've got better at it recently.
Yes.
I think that there was definitely a period of time where I was sort of like, okay, cool, done the aftercare with my client, they feel great. And then I just sort of roll into grocery shopping or just something like really, really like juxtaposition and just go and hang out with a friend. And I was going like that for a while. And then, some good industry friends pointed out to me, hey, you need some kind of closing ritual for yourself that you're not just doing once a week on your own time, but you're doing it at the end of every session. So I do take that, and it's, I guess, called spiritual hygiene is how I would frame it. So I've just sort of absorbed the energy of someone in this space for a long period of time. And how can I make sure that I'm not taking that with me in my body off to wherever I'm about to go? How do I close that down for myself and make sure that I'm back in my body? How am I embodying back into my own physical vessel, my own mind, leaving that session behind?
Because I imagine over 13 years, it's a long time to be doing this kind of work. So there, of course, would be like an interesting relationship to your own mental health in terms of how to care for yourself. Like, have you learnt different things kind of through the years? Like, obviously, the aftercare for yourself, as you were mentioning, but are there other things that kind of really maintain a great sense of mental well-being for yourself doing this line of work?
Yeah, for sure. And most of it I've learned from other sex workers. It's how they take care of each other and how we take care of each other. Making sure that you've got people who are aligned with the way that you work around you, who believe in what you're doing and how you do it. Making sure that you've got community around you is of vital importance to people that I can debrief with and talk to about things that I want to understand more about, or things that just, I don't know, didn't feel good for me, and that I can have a really serious conversation with about and be heard. Not necessarily for practical advice, but just to be listened to in a non-judgmental situation. But yeah, lots of breaks, definitely wasn't working continuously for 13 years, having nice large portions of time away from industry and clients. And also I gave up alcohol a couple of years ago, and that was a huge turning point for me in my work because I started to really be much more intentional and thoughtful with how I was spending my time outside of professional settings.
Is that a prerequisite as well for you having clients that they are also alcohol-free coming into this space?
Absolutely. Yeah. But there are I won't see clients if they are drinking or on narcotics, that's not an alignment for me on my sessions, and also completely undermines consent at that point as well.
Yes.
Yeah, people aren't able to actively give or retract, which they can do mid-session. So it's something that is a strict no for me.
Yes, very important. And with the community of other women in this work, do you look out for each other in the sense of you might warn each other about a particular client, or if something is amiss, like just sort of give the heads up about somebody in that sense? Or
So in escorting specifically, there's definitely like a huge culture of that because there's a lot more vulnerability and risk in terms of like out calls and people coming into your home and spending extended social periods of time with people. For me, in this line of work specifically now and domination, it's something that I feel much more confident and in alignment with. The people that come and see me, because we've already had so much more communication up front about what we're doing, I usually know like implicitly this is going to be a great client and a great session, and I go into it with this like real embodied feeling before I've even began. As an escort, that was not the case. You might not know who somebody is before you even meet them. So it's less of a concern for me now, but there's definitely still a culture of like looking out for each other and sharing each other. Without making a joke, I'm definitely the one with the tools and the weapons and the power. So feel very much more in control of my life and how I work now.
You said that you've been working as a sex worker in multiple different countries. Like, is the relationship to sex work different depending on the country that you're in, or are there similarities, or in terms of the way that it's regulated potentially, like from a government perspective? At the moment in Australia, what are the laws around sex work?
Every state is different in Australia, which is something interesting that people might not know. Like New South Wales versus WA versus South Australia all have different rules.
Right.
New South Wales is the closest to decriminalisation for listeners. That was started in the late 90s, moving towards that model. There's definitely still parts of it that are still regulated, legalised. And then there's only 2 countries in the world that are fully decriminalised, which is New Zealand and Belgium. So, New Zealand, right off the bat, 2003, they were like, we're going to do it. So progressive, so interesting. Belgium, 2022, so really recent. Global campaigns by sex worker-led communities and initiatives call for decriminalisation. And it's important to understand that there's a difference between decriminalisation and legalisation.
Okay.
So when you're advocating for sex worker rights, that's what they're advocating for, is decriminalisation.
So what is the difference between those?
Yeah, so when you're supporting sex worker rights, sex worker advocacy groups, what they're campaigning for is decriminalisation. So decriminalisation in New Zealand and Belgium, they operate under that model, but you'll hear a lot about the Nordic model and countries pushing for the Nordic model, where sex workers are not criminalised for activities, but the clients are for the purchase of them. So it's a confusing contradiction, right? And people think that that's a way that it keeps it safe, but actually what's truly safe is decriminalisation and removing any sort of like laws around it.
Because you mentioned that you had worked in New Zealand. So this is a place where it is decriminalised.
Yeah, fully.
So what was the impact on you when you were kind of going about giving these services as a sex worker? Like what were the major impacts that were the positive effects of working in a decriminalised space?
So it looks like a much more sex positive society, which is beautiful. It also means that it's really normalised walking into SWAP, which is Sex Worker Outreach Project, which is all over New South Wales as well. So you just go in, have a chat. People have really got your back and happy to have a chat and discuss. And it means that access to sexual health and screening is completely normalised and discussed. It means that if anything goes wrong, you can reach out to different services, whether that be health or police or whoever you need to speak to, and you will be heard and you will be listened in those moments. So you're not going through fears of, can I work in an apartment with one other person? Does that make it now, a brothel?
Right.
Which is what legalisation can mean. It means that you can't safely work with another worker without it being illegal. So decriminalisation helps people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we go back to Canberra, which is where we live, the thing that we should tell all the politicians is decriminalise.
Decrim now.
Okay, so you've had this incredible journey and now you are in this beautiful dungeon space. You're a pro dom with this beautiful space to work in. What do you see the future of your work looking like? Like, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself doing exactly this in 5 years? Do you see yourself exploring different artistic projects, as you were mentioning? Like, what does the future look like for Fleur Driver?
I think that I will forever be learning and training. Shadowing and learning and training is really important to me, to keep up to date on the world that is sex, and it's ever evolving, which is fascinating. And having that kind of lens on the small amount of people that I get to see, but having to be able to kind of make my own assumptions about what's going on in the world based off what people are coming and looking for is really interesting to me. So that's going to keep me going in terms of the psychological aspect of it. In terms of the literal physical aspect of it, I think that I would love to have a big, beautiful premises one day, which is aesthetically stunning to the eyes. And I'd love for that to double up as somewhere that people can come and be photographed and have beautiful videography sessions, but also for sex workers to feel safe and come and utilize it as a space for themselves as well. Yeah, there's some spaces like that in London and New York, and that's definitely something that I would love to create and operate one day.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing.
What a future.
Wow.
It's going to happen. I can see it. I can see it in my mind's eye. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll do another. I mean, we'll definitely do a podcast before the next 5 years, but in 5 years' time, we'll do a podcast in your grand dungeon spaces, your multiple dungeon spaces.
Yes, I'm picturing like a big warehouse vibe, like a big converted warehouse.
Yes.
So we've spoken about you having male clients that come to see you. Do you have women clients and people of other genders and orientations?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally am part of the queer community myself, and it's important for me that these services are accessible to people. So I personally offer discounts to Flinter clients, which is female, lesbian, intersex, trans clients, and asexual clients. And that's a really important part of my work and my approach, and something that I think was offered more, like access to these services to people who want to feel safe and reassured and reaffirmed in those spaces. I also offer discounts to other sex workers that we've all got, something that we can exchange together.
And is it common that sex workers will go and see other sex workers?
It's not that common. I wish it was more common. We're all too busy working. But it's something that I access with my husband. As an activity when we both want to tap out and relax and see someone with a professional skill set who can take us on this like amazing journey, who has skills that I don't have. So it's something that we might go and do as an activity on our own anniversary or birthday.
Oh
my gosh, I feel like I'm getting some ideas, Liam.
Yeah, what a way to celebrate.
I
love this.
Yeah.
I love this.
Oh gosh.
So if people were interested in reaching out to you, what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
You can go on my website and you can reach out to me politely with what you're interested in, and I may send you my form back if it's feels in alignment.
And I will say your website has incredible images that you've made with your husband featuring you. And so we'll definitely put the link in the bio, and I encourage everyone to just see this beautiful art that you've created as well.
Thank you so much for sharing so beautifully on this topic. You speak with such depth and such warmth, and just articulate everything so beautifully. And Liam and I have definitely learned a lot. So thanks, you so
guys.
much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Evolving Love podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback and support fuels our passion, and together we're building a community of curiosity, kindness, and growth.
Subscribe, comment, and let's keep the conversation going.